All right. Here we
Okay.
are at the first episode.
First episode. Fantastic. What do we have? What do we have?
We've got a good one in store for you, folks. A good one.
Yes. We got
We
the
have Jackson Collings. Is it Collins
all
or
the way from
Collings?
Australia.
Collings? Collins.
I don't know. Australians pronounce everything funny, as we learned while recording this episode. So yeah, it's Jackson whatever.
Jackson
and
whatever.
You're going to learn about him. He's an amazing chap, and he's going to talk about a very broad subject that we are just starting to explore, I would say, with our podcast, which is what is a cultivator of spiritual arts, we shall say.
Cultivator of the spiritual arts. Exactly.
Yes.
Not a cultivator of grain, even though that's cool too.
It's very respectable and possibly more useful. And but yeah, we're not into that for now. we have disclaimer. Let's cut it short. Let's not make it too long. This is just the intro. So go for the disclaimer.
We have a disclaimer. Yeah. Okay. So it's a good episode. However, it may not be particularly concrete in the beginning in terms of what the hell we're talking about. How do you apply it to your own lives? So our attempt is to kind of first confuse you, and then try to answer some of your confusion to make you feel worse and then better. That's kind of the aim here. So it does happen.
It totally was the aim. It's got nothing to do with the fact that Jackson and us, we are spaced out and like we just left.
It was all planned.
Well planned, yes. But because like later on we catch up and we start talking about incredible themes, right? Like for example, the fact that spiritual cultivation is not natural.
Not natural at all.
Nothing to do with going back to nature. No, it's inhuman, unnatural.
Yeah.
We discuss how to start cultivation. How you get from non-cultivator to cultivator. As if we know.
That's an important one. Yeah. We also talk about going for spiritual experience versus going for transformation / cultivation. So the difference between the two of those. Which spiritual experience is real hot these days in maybe what you could call the new age scene.
Yes, and we don't like it. It's not a friend of the show.
Not so much. Yeah, and we talk about why.
What's a friend of the show? I tell you what it is. It's discipline. Discipline as a foundation for cultivation. That's our good friend, discipline. I'm very disciplined. So it's this and so much more, right?
Yeah, my favorite topic. We talk about going from smooshed sense of self to an unsmooshed sense of self to then a re-smooshed but better sense of self. That's really the process.
The Zen classics talk a lot about this process of smoosh and smoosh. Yes. Did we talk about neti pots in this episode?
I don't know.
I don't think we did talk about it. No, we didn't talk about neti pots. I wish we'd talk about them because I'm really into neti pots. That's my new thing I was telling you about.
If I have allergies, fighting off a little sinus infection, big into them.
I can't wait to go back to Bali and we can share neti pots experiences. Anyway,
okay.
Shall we go on with this episode?
I think we're ready to jump in. A few little things: benefits of cultivation, expansion of your identity, increased quality of life, realization of your human potential. All of this covered and more in the episode. So enjoy.
Fantastic. I was nearly forgetting about all that. Yeah. So, who are you?
I'm Dan Entmacher.
I'm Gimo.
Yeah, and this is Alchemy.
Alchemy on the island.
On the island.
The island. Yes.
Beautiful.
Sorry, mate.
Beautiful.
Alchemy. Join us on the show in the world on alchemy.
Splendid. Let's begin right away with the subject that we have already introduced in the intro that we will record in the future. Which is like first mind fuck of the day. So, cultivation.
Yes.
What does it mean to be a cultivator?
To be a cultivator,
specifically in reference to what we're doing.
Spiritual cultivator.
There's a general thing and then a more specific thing.
And we're going to introduce you in a second.
Nah.
Right now, no one knows who this man is.
Straight to the topic.
Okay. No, it's good. A cultivator is one who uses practices, training methods, ways of studying, and how they live their life to develop qualities, attributes, and character traits into who they are, so that then those qualities, attributes, character traits are then with them no matter what they experience. So they become who you are as a person.
Yes, cultivation isn't about just the skill.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's about changing who you are. And it's developing skill and developing qualities and so on, but changing who you are, so that as causation happens, the kind of blueprint of who you are changes the shape of causation to manifest in certain ways. So, if, like the metaphor of if the self is a cookie cutter put around the river of time.
Indeed.
That shape, the cultivator is one who intentionally makes that shape a particular way so that reality manifests in a certain way. And then more specifically, it's building, because it's not just about, I think that there's qualities that make our lives better and more enjoyable. I think it's a good example. Like developing mental strength enables you to do more, makes life easier, gives you sort of more personal power. But then there's other ones that, because it's not like you do it and then you become better, it's like you do it and it then locks you into this path of growth and transformation that then cycles in upon itself, so that the more you do it, the more you grow and change, and the more you become somebody who is constantly growing and changing. So
and where are you growing and changing towards?
And this is the thing that then differentiates cultivation in general from what each different tradition would make their cultivation about. So I think the general approach of most religions, if you put aside everything that everyone complains about and that has done horrible things to the world, and look at like the core teachings that have goodness in them, they are sort of cultivating towards being the best person you can be, like selfhood, like mastering selfhood in the world,
being kind,
in being a contributing member to society, being able to uplift those around you, that sort of thing. But then, the other traditions, then the tradition that we are joyfully engaged in, aim a lot further than that. Aim at union with the divine, aim at enlightenment, aim at awakening, and these sorts of things. So the mastery of the self is kind of like
part one.
Yeah, part one of maybe many stages. So I think then, obviously, the different traditions build different qualities into. They approach it differently, and their approach to building qualities in is different, and different depending on the outcome they're looking for. And you go.
So to sum it up, like you say, cultivation, the way we do it, is a developmental process that you go through in order to transform yourself into a person that can be in touch with the divine.
Yes, and then also to kind of hack the natural process of transformation that happens to all living things, and the natural process of like evolution that a human being goes through, and hack that from just typical aging process to steer it towards union with what is greater than us.
So it's not really a going back to nature kind of process. It's actually...
No. I think... Isn't it this interesting? Hey, like before I was got engaged with this tradition that we're in now, it was very much this thing of like reunite with nature and connect with the fractal beauty of the natural world and so on. And it's very interesting to have that not be as significant a point. Sorry, I'm looking away from the mic. As significant a point, and yet I feel more connected with nature doing this approach than what I did previously.
Right. It's not taking you away.
No, not at all. And I think maybe there's an element to this where the mechanism of connection with nature is the body. The body is the thing that's part of nature. So as part of our cultivation process, refining, developing the body is a huge part of that. So anyone who's going to do that to their body is going to have an enhanced connection with nature, because that's the medium of that connection.
And I think, the word nature is a funny one, because I feel like through the process we become more in touch with a deeper aspect of our nature, deeper and deeper aspects of who we actually are. But it's not natural. So that, right? So I think that's the interesting thing. Like the natural course of human existence seems to be, this much more standard birth, adolescence, work really hard, have some kids, get tired, get old. And hopefully, you became a slightly better person in that process. But what we're trying to do is something a bit beyond that.
Totally.
I think also like the human nature is so involved with the intellect and so involved with the brain and overuse of the brain that somehow to connect with nature beyond the human nature is to get rid of the intellect or loosen up the use of intellect, and I don't know, it's very confusing for me.
and it's a like that path. If we look at traditions that are more sort of shamanically orientated, their high end thing is trance, which is sort of letting the self step back and disengage from the body and the energy and have something else come and control it, whether that's like the energy of nature or the energy of a force of nature or an entity or something. And I think there's an interesting thing with the nature-based traditions is it seems like the thing that they're aiming at is like total sort of harmony with nature, but also alongside that power through nature. Like an ability,
harnessing.
An ability to kind of control reality through their union with nature, which, nothing wrong with it, but that is very different to then, the tradition that we're in and Buddhism and Taoism and the ones that aim more at union with spirit, which is, the idea of being able to have mastery over reality is maybe a side effect, but not at all the thing that is aimed for.
Right.
Which is a very different mindset, I think.
So let's ground this a little bit. So I want you to introduce yourself a bit, who you are, where you come from, and how you found your way to this path of cultivation. And then maybe we'll get into an example of what cultivation looks like in this tradition.
Absolutely. We can all talk about that. I am Jackson. I am from Australia. I was very lucky to have a really beautiful upbringing, sort of as a wild child in nature, running around naked in the bush.
Like what people imagine kids in Australia do.
But like with more hippiness.
Okay.
Even more. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe not hippiness. Don't know if that's the right word.
Did you eat granola?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a beautiful upbringing like that, and went to a Steiner school.
Steiner
school.
I don't know much about this.
No, it's big in Europe.
Okay. Yeah.
Alternative sort of spiritualistic education.
Totally.
And then through I think one of the things that benefits me now in cultivation that comes from then is a freedom of my body from being able to be totally free as a little kid in nature.
Like you weren't shut down.
Yeah, never told you can't do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then in my teens, my family would go to the snow for holidays, and I got into snowboarding, and then started competing and started doing well in competition, and then that kind of swept us all up into it, and my brother and my sister also did it, but I was the one that sort of went a bit harder at it. So my whole teens and early 20s were chasing the dream of being a professional snowboarder, doing slopestyle, which is the discipline that is big jumps and rails and skateboarding stuff and acrobatic stuff.
Air cultivator.
Yeah, it was so much fun. However, that dream, alongside that, would read, I think when I was 13 or something, I read that book. Actually, when I was 12, I read that book, Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman.
I love that one.
I thought you would. Yeah.
That's a good one.
And I remember sitting there in bed, 12-year-old, reading it, and being like, oh, I should try this meditation thing. And I had a couple of powerful experiences. And that made me go, oh, this is interesting. And then mid-teens, I got obsessed with psychic powers and all that kind of stuff. And then used to, went deep down that, not that deep, but went down that path. Mm-hmm. And a dear family friend was like, oh, you like all that stuff? You should come meet this Chinese guy we go and see. His name's Master Zhao, and he can fucking electrocute me with his fingers. What?
All right.
So the 16-year-old psychic power desiring me was very excited. So then went and met this wonderful man, Zhao Shihao, was my first teacher in all that stuff. And he interesting story. He was brought to Australia by Bob Hawke, who was the Prime Minister. I do not remember when. I think maybe in the late 80s, early 90s. Oh, wow. I have no idea. I apologize, Australians. My knowledge of such things is non-existent. Anyway, Bob Hawke loved his China and went there often, and Zhao cured him of some sort of illness, and then Bob Hawke brought Zhao to Australia.
Cool.
Zhao to help his daughter. Zhao helped his daughter. Bob Hawke gave him citizenship, and then Zhao set up shop and as a healer and a teacher. And yeah, so from like 16 to 19, I trained with him and did all his courses. And
so pretty early.
Early, yeah. And as did my family. Like we all did it. It was
cool.
It was really cool. Yeah, and he's a very, very wonderful person. And from what I know now, from all the study over the years and the things we learned from our teacher, he definitely had it. What he had was
legitimate. Yeah.
So, and this is maybe something that is only understandable to those that know all the things or have done the study, but he had the skills associated with a full dantian, but he taught medical qigong, not neigong.
Got it.
And his English was so-so.
So just for people listening, full dantian is the energy center in the lower abdomen.
Yes.
We're all very engaged out here, and building that energy center takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and it's more associated, at least in our practice, with spiritual cultivation.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So trained with him. It was amazing. But was always like, I want something more. And now and then he would say these words and he'd talk about neigong. And I'm like, what's neigong? And then Google search, and then ended up alongside the snowboarding stuff, finding Kunlun neigong and then going and training in that for a long time. Was in that for 7 years or something, and used to teach it and so on. And that was, I want to say this in a way that is respectful. It really appealed to my power seeking. Yes, absolutely. Not in a way that I was. It definitely did that, and it definitely appealed to my 19-year-old. I want the most strongest mystical
badass.
Yeah, shoot me into the stars right now. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, so it was focused on experience to some degree.
It was marketed.
Got it.
With experience. And it was very effective at giving people experiences. The difference between how to say this. So
I think that's an interesting point, because the difference between experience and cultivation is really important.
So the difference between experience and cultivation, experience can happen if you get enough factors to line up and you'll get a glimpse of something. Cultivation is building those factors into the nature of who you are,
right?
So that it's not just a glimpse, it's there all the time.
Yeah, stabilized.
Which is very different.
Yeah.
Very, very different. So I trained in that system for a long time and found, for me personally, I was able to get experiences, and then I could see, oh wow, so when I do this and this and this, it leads to this experience. I would really like to have that experience stable in my life. What do I need to make that experience stable? Oh, well, when it works, my body is open and balanced or something. My mind is still and calm. My breath is deep and sunk. My emotions are still.
Yeah.
I don't have the skill set for doing that. I need foundations.
Aha.
So then I went
Very wise of your young self.
Jesus.
It's because the experience was so glorious. I was like, I want this.
I'm thinking of myself at that age.
No, that was
embarrassing.
that was 24. That was,
Okay, that's
Okay, I'm thinking of myself at 24.
Yeah, it's
Still
very
embarrassing. Still embarrassing.
So then I went searching and studied with a bunch of different teachers, and some things worked and others didn't. And I'd known of our collective teacher Damo before then, but I didn't have the maturity for his pragmatic language to appeal to me at the time.
He is not appealing to the moons and the stars and the explosions.
Yeah. Once you get into it, for sure. But yeah, it didn't grab me initially. But then I remember his White Moon on the Mountain Peak book. I read that and I was like, oh fuck, yeah, this is the guy. This is who I need to be studying with. So then. Then the academy came out and just
an online program,
which we should absolutely link because
Every episode
join the cult, everyone.
Like,
So then just went all into that, and then over those years, lots of different things. Good martial arts teachers, one particular very good one, and explored lots of other movement activities and so on, and to keep myself sane after moving on from snowboarding and no longer being able to be in the air.
why did you move on from snowboarding?
Cultivation, basically. Yeah, I
was it running out of juice for you?
It ran out of juice. So what happened? I peaked at about 17, I think. I was peaking at about 17, at around the time that a bunch of other guys were also peaking. And had I been successful then, I think I could have, made it, quotation marks.
Professionally?
But some bad injuries. One in particular that was just a really horrendous ankle ligament damage thing, which the toes bent up to touch the shin.
Yeah, that's bad.
Wait, what? Whose shin?
Mine. So, would have been a lot better to have a broken bone than ligament stretched that much, and then it led to like a.
Christ, I'm trying. It's really, it's really far away.
And it's still a bit of an issue now, but it's all good. So that then meant that I was constantly working with this injury the whole time, and it'd be like I'd have 2 weeks where it would be okay, and I'd be able to progress in my snowboard training, and then I'd land slightly wrong, bruised, then limping for another week, and then just come back a bit, and it just became this sort of this grinding thing of that. And at the same,
something went wrong.
Yeah, and then at the same time, I was getting more and more interested in cultivation, and so I was doing the snowboarding thing, but then whenever I wasn't snowboarding, I was reading books and practicing and obsessing over this and watching all the videos and trying to find people to learn from and that sort of thing. I was thinking back on this a while ago, actually. That really bad injury happened the day after. Well, backtrack. There's a theme in my life that when I go, I'll just focus on cultivation and everything else will work its way out. Mm-hmm. The day before that really bad injury, I was going to be flying to go and meet a teacher that I was excited to learn from, and I thought, I'm actually making really good progress with my snowboarding right now. Like I've just tried these new tricks and learnt them, and if I lock them in, then that'll really be quite significant. I think I'll stay. I won't worry about that. I can do that another time. Next day, destroyed.
Oh God, cultivation took its revenge.
Exactly. It seems
once
like
you're in, there's no good.
There. Would you say that cultivation sucks people out of their life? Because this is a thing like you get from people when you start saying quite shyly, I'm kind of cultivating. I'm interested in these things, and all your friends start I cannot even hurt you.
I think it's
insulting you. They say it's taking you away from your life. It's making you. It's changing you.
To cultivate and not be true to yourself is not going to work. But I think it's more that, and because as we cultivate our inner world and who we are aligns, and then that expresses into the world. And if you're living a life that isn't completely true to who you are, you're going to find that out. So I think the thing of cultivation being negative for people's lives is, at least for myself, when I've experienced it, that it's because I was lying to myself or living in a way that wasn't true to myself, or
so like at some stage you have to go like, okay, I have to be honest to myself and to my life, and so I have to tell this and this other person to fuck off because I don't want to see them, and I have to stop doing this and I have to begin doing that, and I have to change.
And I think we all know that anyway. If we've got those things in our lives, it's just that when you cultivate the insights become more energized, and it becomes harder and harder to ignore.
Yeah, I think it's true with any growth process. Like I work as a therapist, and I work with people through periods of change. Maybe it's slower, but if you have significant growth and the people around you aren't growing with you and they're not able to flex with you, it seems you have to move on to different friendships and relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that it's an interesting distinction between the cultivation and spiritual practice and say like a weekend mindfulness workshop, right? Like they're designed to do different things. Like a weekend mindfulness workshop is probably not going to explode your life in any way.
Well, it does for some, but yes.
For some. It's uncommon.
It's uncommon, yeah.
Usually it just kind of benefits whatever you're doing. And it's like, it can be a helpful tool. It can plug it into whatever you're doing.
Kind of like nice house cleaning or something.
Yeah, right. It's helpful. It's good for you. It's like learning how to floss your teeth if you've never been able to. But the spiritual path, the cultivation path, can seemingly from the outside wreak havoc on your life for periods of time if you are not in alignment.
Right.
Absolutely. And then I think if people look at that from the outside, look at someone else, they go, is that good for you? Is that a good thing? But it's really hard to judge unless you're the one experiencing it.
Did you really have a president in Australia called Bob Hawke?
Yeah. And he's famous.
Super
he's,
cool
he's,
name.
he's famous for he's famous for many things, but one of his the Bob Hawke party trick was sculling beers.
So that sounds very Australian.
It's fantastic. Like there's all these instances of big rugby games, and the camera will come to Bob Hawke, and he'll get his beer and smash it down.
Jesus, Bob Hawke, the president. It's cool.
Yeah.
And he brought a Taoist to China. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. He did indeed.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, actually, that's hilarious. Yeah, I owe my path to Bob Hawke. I hadn't thought about that.
It's pretty cool, man.
It's very cool.
Yeah, you're very Australian. Whether you like it or not.
So,
do you have something, Gimo?
I want to know more about this cultivation thing. Like,
okay.
So how is it a decent question to ask? Like, how would you define a cultivator? What are the characteristics of a cultivator? Who cultivates? Like, what do you have to do? Who do you have to be to start with your cultivation? Then it changes you. But what are you looking for? What defines you? You know, like all these 75 questions that I'm not able to ask. Please answer them.
I think I'll answer it in a roundabout way.
Good.
That I think the first quality that is necessary for cultivation is discipline. Because I think without discipline, we don't have the strength to be able to disembed the self from emotion and physical sensation.
Right.
So pre-discipline, the self is a jumble of emotion and mental aversion and preference and how you feel physically. And we've seen this, and I experience it lots myself, but when we're at school and we have a really physically hard training session and you're all like really physically tired after it, and for me, and I've seen others experience this as well, where that tiredness is a bad mood. It's like, that doesn't make sense. You're just physically tired. That doesn't need to be like a bad mood. That's not the same thing, but those layers of self are smooshed together in the beginning. And then I think discipline being the first quality we have to do, and being the kind of starting thing of cultivation, it takes those layers of emotionality, of mind, of body, and takes them from a blob and spreads them all out so that we have this whole spectrum of aspects of self. And I think that leads to freedom, or the beginning of freedom, and the ability to actually make choice and be a sort of sovereign individual. So that would be, I think, the first one of the reasons that people start cultivating, or one of the things that defines someone who becomes a cultivator is someone who's looking for freedom.
So you say that people should have discipline to start, or that they develop discipline through the process of cultivation?
Both.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think
you need at least a tiny bit.
Yeah. The beauty of discipline, though, is that it can be cultivated in any aspect of life. And that thing of, there's a lot of people who we hear lots of stories about people who have developed qualities like discipline in things that, in physical training, in business, in various aspects of life, and then they come to cultivation and they do very well because they've already been able to develop that inner strength.
Right. And you come with the snowboard athlete mindset. I came in with the rock climbing athlete mindset. And definitely see that it does make a difference to come with some of those qualities.
Absolutely.
Trained to some degree. Yeah. And Gimo, you're an expert whistler. You've been really you've honing that craft.
Yes, that's something. It took a lot of discipline, but what is so this is a quality you need to start, let's say. But like, what is something that you would guess? I imagine drags cultivators in. I mean, like people into cultivation.
Yeah.
What's the base desire? What is it that makes then you, myself, want to do this and other people not give a flying shit about this?
I think if more people could taste it, more people would be interested. But it's pretty inaccessible.
What makes it inaccessible?
It's like it's the other ideas that are associated with it. So. It's hippie, it's spiritual woo-woo.
So there's like a layer of assumption.
Yeah.
Well, also because there is a lot of this spiritual woo-woo, hippie stuff mixed in.
Absolutely.
Like you have to, we all, I think, looked through a lot of different practices and systems and all of that before finding 1, 2, or 3 that we really like.
I want to come back to the question you asked of what hooks us into it. But first, just a good example of this is in pre-shifting my life to do this Bali thing that we're doing, I was working in the mental health world, and I was working in facilitating a program called the Optimal Health Program, and a core part of our toolkit was this, what do you call it? Well, a tool called the Health Wheel, and the Health Wheel has different domains, and we would explore those domains with participants, and they would rate their kind of satisfaction with the different areas of their life, the different domains. And one of the domains was called spiritual, or values. And often when I would have this conversation with people, they, many people, particularly more often Australian men than the women that I worked with, but I would say, what does this word spiritual mean to you? And the thing they would say is like, I don't know about that. That's not really me. And then I would go a bit deeper and go, well, for some people, this is about what gives meaning to their life, what drives them, what helps them get out of bed in the morning, what they, meaning. And so
bring it down to earth a bit.
Bring it down to earth and go, and so with one individual that's coming to mind, the thing that it came to for him, it was his role as a provider for his family and that kind of service. And so I think the modern conception of how we think about spirituality makes it very inaccessible because of all the associations with the word spiritual, and then what religion has done to the world and all this sort of thing.
So maybe we need a new word.
We do need a new word. I think cultivation is a good word.
Is it the new word?
It's the new word, but it's a funny one.
Can we make it fashionable? Can we make it trend?
We can try. We start a clothing line.
So that's hilarious. So the thing that keeps us coming back, for me, I think it is the quality of life goes up, way up. Smoothness of the function of what and who I am just goes up and up and up.
I think it's almost, for me, and the way I understand it, what you're saying about the quality of life going up is almost like something that you happily find out when you start practicing quite a lot. I didn't know it exactly at the beginning, because like I didn't have an idea that it would be such a pervasive thing. I would imagine I get good at whatever, let's say understanding energy. I imagine this to be a thing that happens when I'm sitting down and doing my energy tricks and all of that, and then like the rest of my life is the same. And then instead you realize that all the practice like whoop leaks into the rest of life. I think like that, as with many things, like this is probably attractive because we have a void to fill. Like this, I think a lot of people, I think even like maybe in Hinduist practice or something, they talk about this. The only way people can get into real spiritual practice, they can really start moving towards nirvana, all those beautiful things, is when they feel completely disgusted with what life can give them, which is
or just unfulfilled.
Yeah, but like they were more radical, and I think they use like quite a strong term, like to say like you experience everything, right? Like power, money, and sex, and all the things that in our society we tend to strive for. You get them, right? Like you don't go to spiritual life before having had those. Like when you had them and you realize that they're not that enjoyable in the long run, they're not that fulfilling, they're really, you still feel empty, then that's when you're really prepped, probably primed for spiritual practice.
Right. I think that's a Jim Carrey quote actually too.
Yeah?
Yeah, he said something, I wish everybody could be, rich and famous like me to see that it's empty. I'm bastardizing, but he said something like that.
Smart guy.
The other thing that I think is, it's really interesting. Like as we, at least in the tradition that we're in, we're learning to work with the mechanisms of energy and the different layers of the body and how they relate to different parts of our mind, and learning to develop a certain level of skill with that stuff. And it becomes just so fascinating. Right? It's like, whoa, my body can do this and that. And when I do this and touch on this part of my being, then I start having more of this experience. And I think it's just really, really interesting. You get kind of hooked on it and think, what is going on here?
Even more with the mind, I find. Like when, and you learn it like in the school, in the practice, but then again, you can see it every day, right? Like you walk around, you find yourself in conversations you used to have before, and they kind of show themselves to you in a more clear way, like the conversation, the argument, the position the other person is having, where it might come from, where your position is coming from, where it's going to lead, where the outcome of this, what is it going to be, what if I do this? Like it all becomes like, not mechanical in the sense of cold, but like it all becomes like a little more clear. Like it's all like a little more, like you said before, smooshed, like stuff is smooshed together, like it opens up, like even it's a beautiful word, smooshed. Bob Hoke, smooshed.
and then ultimately it re-smooshes in a way that is cohesive.
Right. And I think another thing that I would add to our running definition of cultivation is it's also a process of taking the reference point of who and what you are to deeper and maybe bigger aspects of what you are.
Yeah, so that seems really important.
So initially,
expanding identity.
Yeah. So in the beginning, the reference point is the smooshedness.
the feelings, the thoughts, the
emotions,
the constructed
the reactivity.
sense of self. Yeah.
And then it becomes more and more the awareness that is experiencing that stuff. And then I'm assuming it then goes deeper and deeper and deeper to things, other things.
Yeah, we've been told.
We've been told, allegedly.
We get there's an aspect of the true self that you come in contact with, an aspect of soul, and then spirit.
And so the cultivation is developing the qualities of where we're at. So in the beginning, it's, I mean, in my mind, I break the self up into body, mind, and heart. And sort of, body being our physical experience, mind being our mental experience, heart being our sort of emotional feeling experience. And step one is through discipline, developing, refining those elements until so that the self, which is then, the self is the thing that arises from the experience of those three elements together. So that those three elements connect to a point where they have a kind of structural integrity and a harmony between them all, that then they can like conductive to something more. And then that level stabilizes. And then the reference point for who and what we are can then maybe grow and go to something bigger than that level of self. And then I'm assuming it goes on and on and on. And as we go, we get access to more deeper aspects, more aspects of ourselves that are kind of further back in the chain of causation that we are a manifestation of. And we then refine them. And then the reference point for who and what we are, the reference point that we experience reality from, sort of shifts back through those.
Right. And that's why people's lives can shift dramatically too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because if your sense of identity is expanding dramatically, it's gonna be reflected on the outside.
Completely.
Yeah.
And at first this goes through a fulfilling of your potential, the potential of yourself, right? Like you want to have yourself at its maximum peak before you can step back a little bit and see what's behind that basic self and finding truer and truer layers of it, right? Like I found it an interesting concept that we came across, this idea that like you cannot let go of things that you are not yet fully controlling, fully realizing.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So this sort of those first three aspects, which in my mind kind of make up the constructed sense of self, the ego, the functional ego. That for a lot of people, they come to spiritual life trying with a problem in one of those areas.
Sure.
Trying to get around it, trying to find a way out, and the way out seems to be through in our tradition, and that's why I appreciate these kind of much more body-based traditions that really honor the material aspect of our being, and that also has to transform, because it really helps, I think, people instead of spiritual bypass, to really go through the process of building a healthy constructed sense of self, a grounded, healthy one that can then ultimately relax, let go, and release into a larger sense of self. But first needs to be healthy enough.
Yeah, that's been I've been listening to lectures recently from our teacher, and that the idea of what do you need to do to be happy with who you are, and that if you're happy with who you are, then spiritual stuff is going to be a lot easier.
Right, like that's like foundational.
Whereas and instead of trying to solve those things through practices, instead of trying to make myself happy with who I am through a particular practice or technique, doing it in life and sorting out my life so that I'm really happy with it. And it's funny because I'm noticing that stuff makes such a huge difference when I then do come to practice.
Right.
And it's also so much easier. Like it's so much easier to, I mean, if you really want to aim for enlightenment or something, attaining a certain level of financial freedom should be a pretty simple task compared to that. You know?
That's the mountain. You're just getting to base camp.
Yeah, exactly. So I've really enjoyed, and my life is becoming and has become so much nicer from it, from the way Damo, our teacher, talks about this sort of thing, and the idea of like you need to have your life sorted. And in the things that I studied in the past, that was not a thing at all. It was more like you can awaken at any moment.
Yeah, just do this practice.
Yeah, and then it's a very different mindset to be carrying around.
And it has a basic mechanic explanation. Let's call it mechanical. Like when you practice and you sit and you want to be releasing layers of the self or whatever, you just want to have your mind quiet and still and be comfortable where you're sitting. If you have that itch in you going because you're not so sure of how you're making money at the end of the month, or because you're having an argument, a long-standing argument with someone, and it's annoying, whatever, like that's gonna stay in your mind. It's not gonna let you concentrate. It's not gonna let you relax, go in. Like, you're not going. So like you need to clean those things. You need to release those tensions, and the releasing of a mental tension is going to translate into the release of a physical tension as well. Like, and you're just gonna be more comfortable. You're gonna sit better when you have less anxiety and things like. And everyone can understand this through the basics examples of like you being very stressed and your shoulders tensing up, or or your breath being constrained and stuff. No, you need to make that release and that you can actually be comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key discoveries, and also part of our definition of cultivation, right? Cultivation means it has to bleed into your life.
Yeah.
It means you have to look at the whole of your existence, and you can't just compartmentalize.
Yeah, and it feels like a massive effort at first, but to me it becomes a bit of a game.
Completely.
Right? Like at first you feel like, fuck, like now in every aspect of my life I need to go and solve things. But then you start thinking like in terms of like solution seeking and how do I do this? It's like puzzles and like things, okay. And a lot of things like look similar to other things that you've experienced or that you've solved already, and you keep working that way, and it becomes a little fun thing. And it also makes it's easier the more you do it, because you start realizing that things are less complicated than you think, that things are less relevant than you think, and that when you do a massive change, it's not such a big change. Like it's a good practice that you start bringing to everywhere more and more enjoyably.
Right, because you have an organizing principle. So to organize around, I think it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the aspects of this that, are we 18 months in now? No, not 18 months.
No.
Of actual training, or of like just time since we started?
Since being here in Bali.
So that was March 2023.
Yeah, now in May. So it's like 14 months, but then there have been breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, in the breaks we work even more.
Even harder, Demo. 17-hour days.
Yes.
Imagine that. One of the things that has really shifted for me in my experience since training to this extent has been really seeing how much I was living and still do through projection, and my projection and assumption of who I thought people were, or what I thought experiences would be, or
so you're projecting onto the world what you think it is, and then living based on that reality.
Exactly. And I think this is also one of the things that I've used to understand why I used to be so anxious, is because that map didn't match the territory. Mm-hmm. And to me, it actually makes quite a bit of sense that my body would have been freaked out by that.
Yeah.
Like so my justification to who I was is that, fair enough that you had that anxiety because the projection you were putting onto the world was not true. And so there's a part of you that knew that and was a bit uncomfortable with that.
Any specific examples you can think of? I always like examples.
Pragmatic.
Very pragmatic.
Examples of the map not matching the territory and that causing anxiety. Yeah, I guess just in the sense of say an opportunity arises, and my typical way of thinking about things in the past would have been to really think about all the risks. Mm-hmm. And then I would respond to the opportunity from fear of those risks. And that would then put me in some level of stress. And so then I'm responding to the person who is maybe the opportunity to meet this person or the opportunity to create something with this person. Mm-hmm. And then my body is thinking that the things that the risks I've associated with it's thinking they're like impending. So then I'm managing it from that place. And then I'm like a scared little freaked out mess of a person that can't actually fully engage with the thing.
Like psychological terrorism on yourself.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
State of constant emergency in your life.
Completely. And for me, I definitely used to live with that as the default.
I did a different thing. Mm-hmm. As in, like, I kind of assumed, like it's said, like in Australia, I assumed that that everyone loved me. Like, that was like that everyone that was kind of always right, and people would always accept whatever I said, like, and all that, like, and that put me in the position that, like, every now and then I suspected that it was not exactly like that, and that would kind of freak me out because I think, like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe not everyone loves me, and it created that kind of thing. Like, I also went through life, like, believing, okay, I can say whatever I want about this person to this person. Anyway, they love me. It's me. I'm fine. Like, and instead,
you never got shot or punched?
I never got punched in the face. Okay. Surprising, because I have like a defense mechanism that makes me buy a beer to whoever is about to punch me.
Oh, that's a good one. Here you go, sir.
Beer is ready. That worked out. Anyway, yeah. So, like, maybe this thing that you say about projection is very
So when that all crumbled for you, Gimo, what did you find?
No, it's the ground still things.
Still there?
I'm still alright with it. I just realized that actually I was right.
Oh.
No, it
Cultivation
crumbled. It crumbled in 2008
Yep.
when I broke up with a girlfriend after a particularly tumultuous year of disintegration of the relationship. And this girl, whom I owe a lot to, destroyed me. I think, I destroyed her, but anyway, she destroyed me and made me realize that I was a piece of shit. And she did this kind of amazing destruction part. And I wish she stayed around to also help me reconstruct, but no. she left me there, in kind of a little bit of a desert, in me thinking, okay, everything I believed in was probably not true. Everything I thought I liked, maybe I didn't really like. Everyone I thought loved me, maybe didn't love me. Left me then in doubt, and I had to start from scratch and building again. Okay, did I actually like this? Did I actually want to do this job? Did I actually want to do this?
Wow.
I had to build on top of that, and that's been a long process. I think it's still ongoing, many years later, but more or less sorted. But that's exactly when I said 2008, 2007, 2008. That's exactly when I broke down. Oh God. More about cultivation.
What was that?
The fish. The fish in the pond.
The koi koi.
The surviving koi. We had 8 or 9 beautiful koi carps.
Big old fish.
Big old fish. And then we came back from one of our breaks and there was only one left. And we suspect it ate all the others.
It's very big.
The only one, the last one standing.
I had something I wanted to get to kind of revisit a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a glass of water.
Okay, great. There's something we were talking about in the beginning, which is kind of cultivation is that which takes experience and stabilizes it. And I was wondering if you have any examples of that happening for you through this process.
Yeah. So previously, in the stuff I used to do when I was younger, I would build a lot of energy in my body, and that would then I would become maybe sort of hyper or maybe
extra young,
or blissful, or I would build this thing within me that would make me more stimulated, and then that would express in different ways, whether it was an interesting experience during seated practice, or a really fulfilling time at a party, or something like that. But then on the tail end of it, I would crash, and it was like I'd. So
it was a bit of a pendulum swing.
It was a pendulum swing. So I got good at swinging the pendulum one way, but I never locked it in the place it needed to be. So I think.
What are you guys talking about?
We're talking about the difference between.
You like that?
Yeah. The mechanisms for experience versus the mechanisms for cultivation. Yeah, and
cultivation as that which sort of stabilizes experience.
Okay.
So I think the experiences are things you can trigger, and if you get the right factors, or take the right thing, eat the right thing, do the right breath work, put yourself in the right environment, it's externally dependent.
Yeah.
And so you do that, and then you will have a certain experience, and in a way,
it could be helpful.
Could be, yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, there's lots of things wrong with lots of experiences, but in the way we're talking about it, experience can be very helpful. And it can be helpful in the sense that it can reshape how you see yourself, reshape how you see life. It can show you what more there is, but ultimately it doesn't change who you are as a person. It might show who you are as a person, where you could go or who you could be, but
yeah, and then it's up to you. How do you want to actually integrate that? Which
Absolutely.
Can be challenging.
So I think even even if you do some sort of breathwork practice and combined with something else that triggers a spiritual experience, you've kind of lined up the things in the right way to trigger this experience. Even if you're doing it to yourself, it's still kind of external, because the factors that created that experience have not become intrinsic to who and what you are.
Right.
And so then that's where cultivation comes in, where it's not about experience. It's really not about
Though experiences happen.
But when we're doing our Tai Chi practices to transform the body, how you're feeling while that is happening is not what it's about.
Irrelevant.
It's completely irrelevant. But what is relevant is the transformation that has to us, and as that starts to stabilize, and then the system starts to function differently, and then things that we might have previously glimpsed through experiences of lining up the factors in the right way, they start to become doors that stay open, rather than doors that we peek through for a moment.
Which is quite different.
Yes, very, 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 very different.
And not as sexy, I have to say. If you go to a workshop and you're like, I've just like put my pinky toe in the water, versus like, I had this amazing experience, I was breathing and saw this and that, right? It takes in some ways a different type of person to look at this and go, yeah, that seems really attractive.
Like a food fetishist.
Yeah.
Pinky toe in the water. Oh.
I think the contrast is a huge part of what makes experiences exciting.
Right. Sense of, different.
Yeah, it's so different from everything I'd had before.
Yeah.
So it seems that when the experience, so the experience is having a glimpse through the door, whereas cultivation can stabilize a connection with that part of self or that aspect of reality. To stabilize it, it becomes normalized, and it's not, oh my God, wow, it's
like
just normal.
Yeah.
One of the first things you need to lose when you cultivate is the taste for novelty.
Yeah.
Novelty has to be almost irrelevant. Though, I mean, I still enjoy that. I must say that when we do a new exercise, they're like, it's a new practice. Or when I have a new experience, but like I notice, like as soon as I get excited about the novelty, it kind of fucks things up a little bit.
Make friends with boredom.
Yeah, you just have to be like that really unpleasant person that whatever you show them, they go like, yeah. Okay. Look at what I got. Cool. You know, it's a bit annoying.
It's a really interesting tension in that it sort of, we become less, not less excitable as people, but there's some emotional thing that comes down.
To me, it's really one of the most fascinating aspects, because like again, like conversation with my skeptical friends, often I get like, well, but like, what's the point? Like you become like you don't want to be subject to desires and things, and you get less excitable. You like life less. Instead, no, I'm finding these other things. Like I like things much more now than before. Like somehow, right? Like it's you get less of this excitement, like desire for the thing never to end, desire to possess this thing, desire. But you actually enjoy things like in a very genuine, simple way, which I kind of really like.
Totally, man.
Not sure how to describe this, but there is a fruition of things which is more. I'm gonna leave it there.
Oh, I kind of want to unpack that because I'm hearing a couple of things in there that seem important.
All right, psychotherapist.
Yeah,
let's go.
So one thing I'm imagining that might be happening, based on what you're sharing in my experience, also is like less attachment to the outside world to fulfill something within you. Right. So if you're not demanding some experience to make you happy, if you're finding some level of okayness within, some happiness within,
right,
then you can experience this outside thing without any demands placed on it or any fear of when it might end. You just experience it.
Yes. It's sort of like you carry your contentment and joy with you wherever you go, rather than it being in other things.
And then you have this direct experience of the thing, like very not mediated by like your expectations or your previous experiences and all that. Like you're just really kind of enjoying the thing in its moment, and then you're happy to let it go when it's over.
Yeah,
it's very nice. Yeah. It feels very, very nice. One question that might be a little bit of a dick question here.
Bring it on.
What's so good about being in touch with the divine?
Let's go right for it.
Yeah, I mean, like,
that's great.
Why are we aiming for that? First of all, knowing that it's a fucking pain in the ass to get there.
I don't know.
Like,
I have no idea, but you know how we were talking about before of aligning the elements of self?
Right.
And so that when body, heart, and mind are integrated, when you have integrity of them, that another force can arise. In my current way of thinking about it, purpose is the thing that can arise after that. So someone with integrity acting in the world, purpose arises. And for me, that's kind of I'm happy to say that is a place that I'm having experiences of. and or where I'm at in a stage of cultivation or something. I'm not saying I've locked in at that, but I'm glimpsing pieces of that. And what I'm finding is that as purpose arises, life becomes more meaningful. I have more energy. Like, things are more exciting. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this thing.
On Mondays too?
Yeah, on Mondays too.
Wow.
I could definitely have.
He's more advanced than us.
Because on Monday in this household.
Unless I sleep in. If I sleep in, then everything is horrible. So I think, for me at least, as I'm getting to a point of having a greater level of integrity that I had previously, as these elements of self are harmonized, there is this new thing that's coming into my life, and it is making life a lot richer. It is leading to more opportunities. It's leading to more inner and outer resources. So I imagine as the cultivation journey continues, that continues. So if I'm finding purpose to be so fulfilling, imagine what, touching the divine might be like.
Smooshing with the divine.
yeah.
But I think where I wanted to get at with my question was actually that, we talk about like the divine as the main, the end of cultivation, but ultimately we kind of keep that. Okay, there's meeting with the divine. We keep it there, but it's not like what we think of like every single day when we are doing every single exercise, right? Like we have that greater goal, and then we have intermediate goals, and then we have smaller goals and smaller day-to-day goals.
Yeah, like opening the qua.
Yeah, opening the fucking qua. We have to do an episode on like this goddamn qua.
Yeah, and
but we are not gonna say what it is now.
Take a guess.
Is it a package? Is it a restaurant? What is it?
Type of duck.
To me, the organizing principle of
Ducks
touching
in Italian. Sorry, the verse of the sound that the ducks do in Italian is qua 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 qua. I just wanted to say, but it needed an interruption. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that for me, having an organizing principle is so helpful when you get into the weeds. Because to me, it's very motivating to be moving towards union with soul and then spirit, for a lot of reasons. But that guiding light or guiding principle helps me get into the minutia of, I got to open this thing in the body, which normally I kind of don't care about. I have a hard time sometimes dealing with the minutia.
How do you stay connected with that higher order thing you're orienting towards?
Yeah,
whilst in the minutia, because I struggle.
What's a minutia? Minutia as in M-I, okay, see.
Yeah, like the little details.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question. I don't think I succeed all the time. But I do, especially if I'm getting frustrated with a particular practice that maybe I don't feel like I'm doing a good job at, or I don't understand how it's connecting me in the moment, I just kind of take a breath and reorient to what I feel like I care about, which is moving towards truer and truer states of being and embodying truth in this body as a human being.
Would you say that this is some form of devotional energy rising in you?
I think so.
It feels like almost like someone who's in a moment of big trouble, orienting towards God and seeing something bigger.
Yeah, it's I kind of flash that orientation, and then I also have to flash to I trust my teacher, because I don't know maybe in this moment how this thing is connected to where I want to go, but I see the integrity in him. I see the path that he's walked since I've known him for the last 6 years. He's transformed in some really beautiful ways. So I have to flash on the trust, and I have to flash on my deep inner purpose.
Yeah.
And then I can calm the fuck down.
Yeah. The trust is a huge part of it, because, spirit, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Maybe this underlying light or infinite consciousness that suffuses all things, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So
best not to know fully.
So
not to presume.
I go back to looking at, okay, well, I've done this and this has arisen and I like this and this is good and this is working. So maybe it will continue to work like that when I go to the next point. So, but the trust is a big one.
Yeah. And I feel like there was really a vetting process for me with Demo. The first couple of retreats I went on, I'm just like, is this guy legit? Is this really a teacher I can follow, not blindly, but have enough trust in to kind of keep taking the next step and testing it out of myself. That definitely was a process.
Yeah.
what does a person like who's listening to this podcast and has said, "Oh my God, this Jackson guy, like, oof, like he really knows something." Right? Like, I didn't know about this. Like, I thought I wanted to be an accountant, but actually, turns out I would like to cultivate. What do I do?
Maybe still be an accountant and cultivate at the same time, if that's possible.
Oh, beautiful answer. Now, how does one start to cultivate? What are
Where
the
do you
steps?
start?
Where do you start?
Discipline. We said that. Like, but...
Yeah, if I, there's funny moments when you think about being a father and the kind of militant father idea comes out of like, oh, if I have kids, I want to train them like this and this and this.
That's going to work well.
Don't have kids.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work. But okay, so the thing that comes to mind is I think mastery over the body has to come first. I think discipline has to come first, and the best way to build discipline is through something to do with the body. I think
so. The accountant should start working on his body.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Like, just go to the gym.
Start with working on the body. So I think work with the body. Find a way that the mind is always growing and learning and engaged, and then something around. Yeah, so my mind goes to these elements of body, mind, and heart. So body, work on the body, build discipline. Mind, be growing, learning, mentally challenged. Don't be mentally challenged.
Mentally challenged.
Seek mental challenge and to rise and grow through it. And then with the heart thing, I think there's starting with gratitude is a really useful one. I think that starts to reorient how we relate to life and can shift us from being, I am feeling entitled to things. Because I think
or a victim,
yeah. And having that subtly in the background as how we're seeing life, whereas with gratitude, it can kind of shift and we start to open and release and appreciate everything that is. So I think cultivation starts with trying to be the best version of who you are now, not destroying your life and going and doing something else, but going like, what are the cards I have in my hand right now?
How do I work with this?
How do I work with this the best I can? And then I think taking that to a point of trying to cultivate integrity so the alignment of your values, with your actions, with who you are, connecting all of that together, then I think that leads to purpose, and then I think purpose will start to take over. And then I think if cultivation in the way that we do it is something that is right for a person, they'll end up going in that direction.
Right.
Because there are different ways of cultivating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're talking about like these are like the foundations of cultivation, things that anybody could start doing today.
Yeah.
And start engaging in, and at some point, I assume that that you need a path. You need some sort of teacher. You need some sort of path that can take you deeper. Unless you're a sort of cultivator genius, which there are maybe a few out there who can kind of just do their own thing and find deep states of being. But I'm not one of those, and needed a path and a teacher.
I think one of the traps is as you said earlier, a lot of people come to Taoist arts like Qigong or Tai Chi and so on. They come to fix a problem.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if we tried to fix all our problems first and then enter the arts, it would be a lot more successful.
Or like myself, try to do it at the same time.
Oh, same time, yes, absolutely.
As long as we understand that you still have to fix the problem sometimes.
But not using the cultivation methods as the way to fix the problem, which is definitely how I approached it in the beginning. I think how
everyone approaches it.
Yeah.
It was a huge hole in my life, and the idea, the super woo cultivation gave me a way of maybe having a very grandiose vision of who I thought I could be, and then that being a way to escape from life. And I had some experiences, but overall, if I knew I could be at this point in my life here, but go back and change the past, I would go back and I would try and focus on integrity, focus on discipline, focus on the mastery of life. But I don't know if I did that. I don't know that I would be here, so I wouldn't change anything.
You'd be way up there.
But yeah, I'm very happy with where I am, so I wouldn't want to change. But
awesome. Well, thanks for coming back for round two.
Yes, and this is round two of many.
Yeah.
You'll be a guest again.
I look, maybe like in a year we'll go again and we can disagree with everything we've just said.
Sounds great.
That's the
evolution.
That would be the evolution, but probably we'll be still stuck in the same spot, complaining about the fucking quad. All right.
Thanks, guys. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.